Good evening. We'll now start the June 2nd CIC meeting. Roll call, please.
Okay, with Kanema, Linda to my left, myself, Dennis, Caulfield, Dan, Lisa is not here, yes? No. Elyville, we have anyone in the wings?
Dee Dee reached out to me and she told me she was not going to be able to make it though.
Okay. Gaffney Lane, we have Betty on Zoom. Betty? Is Betty there? Betty? Oh, there's Dwayne. He's where we should be. So is Betty there?
I think so.
Okay, well,
I know when she first logged on, when I started getting running, she was having some issues with audio. So I'll message her in the chat.
Okay. And Hazel Grove, we had Chris up here? Yes. Hillendale, Sarah?
Here.
And Josh? Here. McLaughlin, we have Denise?
Here.
And Tim?
Here.
Park Place, we have Bob.
Here.
Nick is not here. South End, Mark is the new person. And where are we with Tower Vista and Two Rivers? Is that yours, Hannah?
Hillendale and Tower Vista are conjoined, and Two Rivers, Katie has attended in the past. She's not an official CIC member, but she's not with us tonight. But I'll make sure to announce if she joins online at all.
Okay. All right. Back to you.
Okay, we'll have our first presentation tonight. Home provider conditioner, second home, Rob Schellert? Schellert, all right. Welcome.
Dwayne Hanson's here too.
Awesome, Dwayne.
Hello, good evening. Such a pleasure to be here today, and thanks for the invitation to share with you about Second Home program. Second Home program, what we do is we connect with unaccompanied high school students in Clackamas counties, so that with home providers, so that they can finish their high school education in order to prevent adult homelessness. And so I'm a home provider coordinator for East Multnomah and Clackamas counties. And so what we do is we provide stable housing and ongoing support for unaccompanied students experiencing homelessness, allowing them to focus on completing their secondary education, realizing their gifts and potential. And so we work with local school districts in Clackamas County. We work with mediation programs in Clackamas counties, as well as Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, which Second Home is part of. So we work in partnerships with local schools, high schools. They identify students who are unaccompanied, meaning they are living on their own. They have no family structure, or they might be sleeping in their car. They might be living in shelter or staying at a friend's house. And so they identify these students and they refer these students to Second Home. And what we do, we seek to work with them to support them in their education journey. So how it works is that Second Home, my role is we seek to find volunteers in the communities, folks who have a spare room in their home, who have a capacity to host a young person in their home while the student works towards their education. And so we, as a home provider coordinator, we interview potential hosts, we do background checks, and in the schools, local schools, they provide referrals to students who are in need of a place to live. And all the students are drug and alcohol free, no violent history, and they're all vetted to make sure they're okay. And our story is that it started in the Beaverton School District many years ago. They had a student whom they were looking for a host, for a place for the student to live, and they approached Academical Ministries of Oregon to see what we can do. And so, as a result, we began serving students in 2010 in Beaverton, and from there we expanded in developing relationships with schools, programs in Washington, Clackamas, East Multnomah, and Lincoln counties. And so our students have a graduation rate of over 90%, and Oregon's graduating rate for the last school year was 80%. And of those who are unaccompanied students, those graduating rate without a stable environment is around 63%. And so stability provides everything. So in unaccompanied youth, so there's roughly about 3,600 unaccompanied youth in the state of Oregon, roughly 132 in Clackamas County who experienced homelessness during the last school year. Unaccompanied means that this young person is not living in physical custody of their immediate family. And reasons for this may include high levels of conflict, student being forced to leave, unstable housing situation, deportation of a parent, parents not able to afford their place to live. A lot of times, parents ask the student to pay for rent in their own home. So unaccompanied students in Clackamas County, we have about 79 students who are unaccompanied in Oregon City at last count. Other school districts in Clackamas County, Oregon Trail, 22, Malala, 9, Canby, 8, Westland, Wilsonville, 8, and Gladstone, 6. Overall, in Second Home program, we are working with about 40 students right now who are enrolled in our services. They work with our student coordinators. And we have about 17 students who are currently in housing with a home provider. In Clackamas County, we have 12 students enrolled in services, and with 4 students currently enrolled in housing here in Clackamas County. And so the student coordinator, they work with students, they work with them once a week, meet with them roughly once a week, check in, see how they're doing, provide additional support, getting support with SNAP, getting Oregon healthcare and so on, and working with the local schools, making sure they have everything they need to succeed. And so here's the process of our program. So home provider preparation, we recruit home potential hosts who have a spare room in their home, and we interview them just to make sure it's a good fit, background checks of all home providers, and we make sure the home is a stable environment, and we ask that the host at least provide a room for the student. And then the schools themselves, usually the counselors, they refer students who are interested in a stable living environment to our program. And when that happens, we set up interviews for the home providers and the students to meet each other, first time online, the second time in person, and third time usually at the home provider's home, just to make sure it's a good fit. And both parties need to be totally on board with it. So it's an opportunity for home provider and student to interview each other. And that's where the interviews come in. And so the interviews, and once that happens, the student and the home provider will meet up with a mediation party, which helps to write up a contract on housing agreements, like responsibilities, to make sure that the student and the home providers on the same page about expectation and so on. And if there's any conflict in the relationship, we encourage the student to communicate with the student provider, student coordinator, and the home provider to communicate with the home provider coordinator like myself to talk about what's going on. And so we try to take the energy of the conflict away from home and try to refer to the mediator to help resolve the conflict. And the beauty about having a contract is that in the state of Oregon, minors who are age of 16 years old can sign a housing contract. And even though we don't charge rent, but the students leave the program not only with a high school diploma, but with a rental history, which they can use to find their own place once they graduate from the program. And our student coordinators work with the students for as long as they need support. And so we continuing the student coordinator continues meeting with the student on a regular basis, and the home provider coordinator meets with the host on a regular basis just to check in, see how it's going, and problem solve. And we also provide ongoing training as well for the home providers. And second home students, they are self-motivated to graduate. They're highly motivated. They commit themselves to remain drug and alcohol free, have no history of violent behavior. The students make decisions about which home provider to interview. Staff, we don't place a student with a home provider, and so it is entirely, we just facilitate meetings, and we work with a home provider and a mediator to put together a contract. So we are looking for home providers who care about teens and their future and interested in preventing adult homelessness. We are looking for home providers who have a desire to help and be involved in the student's life to the extent that the student would like, are able to provide a room. And our home providers are not expected to parent. Mentoring, there's a lot of mentoring involved, but not expected to parent. So more like a landlord-tenant type situation. And we're also looking for home providers who are willing to go through the home provider onboarding process, which includes interview, home visit, homework, training, and background check process as well. And if you're not able to host a student at this time, but still interested, we always are looking for more opportunities to share about second home program. We're always looking to recruit home providers wherever we can find them throughout the county. We encourage people to talk about second home with people you might know who might have a spare room in their house. help raise awareness about unaccompanied youth, donate funds or supplies for students, as well as getting in touch with representatives to support legislation to address youth homelessness. And one thing I want to mention is that students who engage with our program for at least 6 months, they are eligible for tuition fee waiver at all Oregon State colleges and universities as well.
A complete waiver? A complete waiver of tuition?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, more information, feel free to contact me. The website's there, and I also have brochures, business cards at the back table.
Bob?
I have two questions. Can you define East Multnomah County? Can you define East Multnomah County?
Yes, East Multnomah County, we're talking about Gresham, Troutdale, Reynolds High School, School District, yeah.
And where does the funding for this program come from?
We receive funding through the state as well as local organizations as well.
Okay, thank you.
And what is the age? I mean, these are high school, but are we talking freshmen, juniors, seniors? What, are they all ages or what are the ages?
From freshmen all the way to seniors, and as well as college students who are starting to college, like graduated from high school. We have I believe we have about 10 or 11 students who are graduating high school this year.
Any other questions? Online? Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have the Parks Master Plan, Scott Archer and Thomas Kissinger. Kissinger.
Is this already on? You know?
It should be.
Can you hear me? Is this on? Okay, great. Good evening. This is Tom Kissinger. He's the Deputy Parks and Recreation Director for the city, and I'm Scott Archer. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the city, and I've been back in this chair for about 6 weeks. I was previously in what is a similar role with the city for about 12 years. I left to continue my career in local government in this region for about the last close to 10 years, and jumped at the opportunity to return to Oregon City, which really is the place that I realized that I wanted to be. This is home base for me, and so I have just kind of recently returned to this role. I've been here back in this for, like I said, for about a month and a half. So great to be here, getting reacquainted with people that I worked with before, and acquainted with those that I hadn't worked with previously. So thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. We're going to provide an update about the Parks and Recreation, or the Parks Master Plan, which is just our citywide comprehensive plan looking into the future of what the community tells us that it wants Parks and Recreation to be for this city. So the city has been, the Parks and Rec Department has been working on this for back to really 2022. So this has been a lengthy process. It's a very in-depth process, heavy community engagement, and then lots of kind of follow-up and follow-through. And we're really on just the last kind of steps here, and we're here just to inform you tonight about that, answer any questions you might have, just give you a snapshot of what that looks like. But really, we're going to be kind of taking it across hopefully the final finish line on Wednesday night with the City Commission, when we bring that to them to ask them to adopt it as an ancillary component of the city's comprehensive plan. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that piece. So what I'd like to do is ask Tom to walk you through a presentation that we've got, and then we'll just be happy to answer any questions you might have. And if you don't, that's okay. But if you do, we'd love to answer them. So let Tom take it from here.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, so tonight we're going to walk through the same presentation that we've been doing for the Planning Commission. We've done this for a City Commission in a work session, and we'll be doing this again on Wednesday for the public hearing to adopt this as part of the the first reading to adopt this as part of the comprehensive plan. We're going to provide a little extra context on what some of this means throughout the presentation, but we'll just dive right in, and at the end we'll have some time for questions. So going back to the very beginning, the Parks Master Plan, this project began in April of 2022. It had an extensive public engagement period and community input over a 2-year period, and the phase we're in now is currently adopting it into the city's comprehensive plan. The reason for doing that is it really makes it part of the land use code. It makes it part of the planning decisions. It helps guide where we acquire land, where we dedicate land for different new developments, and gives us paths forward for grants. In a lot of our different grant applications, one of the boxes you have to check is that the project is part of an adopted master plan. This is how we adopt that master plan. So a couple of the highlights from the master plan. The document itself was in your packet. It's about 130 pages without all the appendix. With the appendix, it's about 1,000. So we're not going to go through every page tonight, but we will open it up for questions, and hopefully you had time to read that. We are going to go through the highlights, though. During the process for the community engagement, there was a statistically valid survey. What that means is it was randomly sent out to members of the community to create a sample size. Those were then compiled by a statistician, created a statistically valid survey. Then there was also a community-wide survey, which was just a survey monkey. It was open to anyone to provide feedback. Using those combined results, our consultants who developed the plan created this list of high priorities for investment. There's a list of about 100 items that goes from high, medium, and low. But what we're going to show tonight are the high priorities for investment, and they go in order from top to bottom. The highest priority investment that the community identified was multi-use paved trails, followed by multi-use unpaved trails. So clearly trails are a desire of this community in many different forms. Water access was number 3, an outdoor amphitheater number 4, indoor walking, jogging track, large community parks, open space and conservation areas, fenced dog parks, and small neighborhood parks. So what those high priorities mean to us as a department, these are the things that we'll focus a lot of our effort on. It doesn't mean that the other items, the medium items on the list, the low items on the list are not high priorities, but if these opportunities come up, we're really going to prioritize investing our time and effort into these. So this big, complicated spreadsheet basically boils down to what's called a level of service analysis. So what the consultants did, we provided our information from Oregon City and then also information from other service providers. Here in Oregon City, that's primarily the school district, provides open access space that the public can access, maybe not during school hours, but during other periods of time where you can walk or jog or play baseball, those kinds of things. So that's the column that you see other service providers. The column that says Oregon City is our acreage for the different types of parks. I do just want to give a little bit of context on what these, what is a pocket park? What is a neighborhood park? There's a document that's in your packet that's the parks inventory. This spells out what each of those are. In general, a pocket park is our smallest type of park. It's generally less than 3 acres in size. It can have different amenities, but it's typically a relatively small park. A good example of this that has kind of a full development would be DC Lotterette. Relatively small park, but has play structures and sport courts and all sorts of different amenities. A neighborhood park, that's typically defined as park spaces that are between 3 acres and 8 acres. They typically feature a mix of development and natural space. Typical amenities in neighborhood parks include play structures, walking paths, seating areas, picnic shelters, sport courts. This is the first size of park where you'll typically see a restroom. Not always, but most of the time. Parking areas, a dog park is sometimes found in a neighborhood park, even skate parks or ball fields. So an example of this, a large neighborhood park would be Tyrones Woods. That's just on the threshold that makes it a neighborhood park. A community park, that's our larger parks, typically defined as park spaces that are between 8 acres and 20 acres. They're typically highly developed with areas of natural spaces interspersed throughout. This is where you're going to start to see like large play structures, baseball diamonds, soccer fields. You will definitely see restrooms at a community park. You'll see probably multiple shelters. And then the list goes on of what we can accommodate with larger acreage. A good example of a community park would be Hillendale, a large community park that supports multiple ball fields, multiple uses simultaneously. There's a lot of people who can use it without conflicting for different reasons. Regional park, these are our largest category of park. They're typically defined as a park space that's over 20 acres, and they provide services or amenities that are utilized by the larger regional population, not just residents of Oregon City. We only have one regional park in our system, which is Clackamet Park. So that gives you kind of a good idea of what a regional park can be. They're typically highly developed with large areas of natural spaces. In some instances, they may protect or conserve vital habitat areas. Another example in Oregon City, not one that's managed by the city, would be Newell Creek Canyon, Kanema Bluff. Those are regional parks. They serve a broader residency, but they're also protecting natural habitat. This is also where you start to see, just with the size, you can do bigger amenities, things like boat ramps, RV parks, and everything that we listed before. You'll notice one there called specialty parks. A specialty park provides a unique specialty service, just like it sounds. It can be utilized by both residents and visitors. They vary in size. They can be really, really small. An example of that would be John Storm or Sportcraft Landing. In terms of acreage, not a very large park, but it's providing a specialized service. A larger version of a specialty park would be End of the Oregon Trail. So it's providing a specialty service. We use it as a community space, but it's also used as interpretation, the historical center. You know, it's a little different than the park that you go to throw a Frisbee in or take your dog to. Trails, I think everybody knows what a trail is. They're paved, they're unpaved. They can be user generated, they can be maintained. In the city of Oregon City, we currently have a total inventory of about 13.21 acres of trails. So what this is doing, just to give you context, is it's comparing our current service level. It takes this acreage and then compares it based on a population of acres per 1,000 to a recommended service level. That recommended service level was developed based on national standards from the National Recreations and Parks Association, and it compares whether we meet that standard or whether a need exists. These populations were based on a 2022 estimated population of 37,967. The items that you see that have a red needs exist in the 2022 facility standards were items that were identified as having a need today when this report was written. The items that you see in the column that says 2032 facility standards is looking 10 years in the future from when this plan was developed. As our population increases, need increases as well. Those are the items that we will increase in need. You can see they're pretty much the same across the board. The only one that really escalates with population is multi-purpose fields, rectangular, which would be soccer fields, and it doesn't increase by that much. The items that the analysis shows today that we are in need of are more neighborhood parks, particularly. You see that in today's standards, the recommendation is an additional 23.1 acres of neighborhood parks to satisfy the level of service needs of the community. And in the future, that increases to 29 acres. So one of the things, if you think about this plan and kind of the comprehensive plan, and I mentioned land acquisition, development, this gives us some targets on where we should acquire land, where are we not meeting that need currently in the report. They walked through kind of mapping exercises that looked at these level of services, and you'll see little bubbles on the map that show the existing parks and how many people they serve in that community. We start to target the areas that are in between those or where we see gaps to provide more equity in park space. One of the ones that I'll point out down at the bottom that just is a fairly larger need, according to the analysis, was indoor amenities. So indoor aquatic space today, the need exists for about 412 additional square feet of indoor aquatic space, and an indoor recreation space need exists of about 38,834 square feet. So that's just based on national standards. Doesn't mean that we have to do that, but that's what the level of service recommends. So I'm not going to walk through this one individually because it's a lot of line items, but this is the capital improvement plan that forms the basis of all of our kind of future financials for the Parks and Rec system. It provides estimates on these projects, gives, there's a variety of different categories. There's new park development. You'll see some things up there that maybe you don't even know what we mean when we say Claremont Way. That's where we kind of pair this document with the parks inventory. The parks inventory provides the narrative to this dollar amount. It explains what the property is in its current state, and what this money would be used for in the future. So there's a long list of here. I'm going to jump to the end though, so you can get just kind of a sense of the dollar amounts we're talking. So total without aspirational goals, the three aspirational goals that we included in the list are an upgrade to the Mountain View Cemetery, a large upgrade to Atkinson Park and the Buena Vista Clubhouse, and then end of the Oregon Trail redevelopment. Without those three, the total would be $111 million to build everything on this list. And with those three, the total would be $163 million. So it is very much a large lift, right? It's a long-term plan. Typically, a parks master plan is at least 10 years of planning. Some of these items, when we talk about, larger developments at end of the Oregon Trail or Clackamas Park, you're probably talking more 20 to 30 years of development. So again, very long-term. That number is very scary. That's one of the things that we're working on, and one of the opportunities we'll talk about at the end. How do you need an elephant one bite at a time? So we need to start to break this down into manageable chunks. We need to start to prioritize this, come up with our list for the, upcoming future, using the goals and targets of the commission, of the community, and start to meet these goals so that we can show progress, show forward momentum, and build towards this full list. So now moving into kind of the process here with the comprehensive plan amendment and the parks inventory. So park staff work with our planning staff to develop an applicant narrative and the associated documents for an amendment to the OC 2040 comprehensive plan. The parks inventory that's in your packet was created in collaboration with staff and our Parks and Rec Advisory Committee to implement the ideas that are outlined in the Parks Master Plan. We took all those ideas, we took all that community feedback and in these needs analysis, and we put it into a narrative using these dollar amounts to say this is what we're going to build. And it suggests improvements to current and future parks. The parks inventory represents the narrative of the capital improvement plan that was approved in the Parks Master Plan. So kind of next steps, we had our public hearing with the Planning Commission, which was held on May 12th, 2025. And this week is our first reading of the comp plan amendment with City Commission on Wednesday, June 4th. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Josh?
The Claremont Way property, you guys have listed like $5 million for developing it?
Yes.
My understanding is, thank you. From my understanding, there's not a whole lot that can be done because of the BPA power lines and all that kind of stuff.
So there would definitely be height restrictions. That doesn't mean that, there's a bunch of different types of amenities we could do there. It could be as simple as a dog park. It could be as complicated as like a pump track, like a bike park.
I guess what my question is what is the idea for the $5 million in spend?
So what it uses is recent development numbers, like a per acre development. And it just.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's just taking some sort of average there.
Right. It's making an assumption based on prior development. A property like that would typically have to go through a planning process. We'd have to go to the community and ask what they actually want. So we're just trying to set aside dollars
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think, just to add to that, I think Tom explained that well, but that just to remember that this is a very high-level snapshot view of things. So often, the city team working with consultants that put this together want to make sure they've captured what could be possibilities. So sometimes that might be more than what we might program it to be. So then we get down into the detail level later, somewhere down the road, but we want to make sure we've at least captured that idea, and yeah.
I was just trying to
It's a
figure
good
out what,
question. No, it's-
what in that little 2-acre plot, $5 million is gonna, gonna put there. That sounds like a mansion being built to me, so.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was gonna ask is with all of these upgrades and, all these different things to add to the plan, where does that set us as far as all the maintenance that needs to be done to our current parks inventory?
Yep.
How are we doing on maintenance?
Yeah. Maintenance is always a consideration. One of the categories actually that you'll see, if I can go back.
I think the number that I recall hearing last was somewhere in the $17 million in deferred maintenance.
I'd have to double check. So this category that you see here, and does this have a laser?
No.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Total park improvements.
Okay.
If you look at this list as it goes up, it lists all our existing park and it
Oh,
says
okay.
deferred maintenance. So there's
Must have missed that one.
kind of two categories of deferred maintenance. This captures the larger, like, capital replacement. So if you think about a playground is a great example, right? There's the regular maintenance of just, swing brakes or something,
Sure.
bolt brakes. That we can take care of. We're good at that. That's what our team does, right? What we need more money for typically, which we target through grants or through SDCs, are replacement of that capital asset. So I think Chapin is probably a good example of this. That play structure is about 20 years old, and we're starting to struggle to get parts for it.
Sure.
So some of these things, as they age, it just becomes more cost effective to replace them. So that's what this dollar figure represents, which is about 6.2 million. It's 10 years of kind of replacement of capital assets in these places.
And is this just a generalized number as well? It's just kind of a figure per thing, or is this actually like, we know there's a whole bunch of stuff and here's a cost plus whatever, 20%
Yeah.
number?
So there was a report that was done, and I don't remember the year, it was before I was here, but there was a report that was done that defined all the parks and facilities deferred maintenance, I think for the next 20 years. We took that and filled it in for
Gotcha.
this. Yeah.
Okay.
And then again, just adding, and I really appreciate that question, because it's one thing to think about adding and building or, repairing what you're improving what you've got. But we always have to be mindful of actually taking care of that, the mowing, the cleaning, all the things that go into parks maintenance. So that is something that we really want to be mindful of particularly if we add acreage and add new things to the system, as we always want to be thinking of that. And how do we tackle that? So I really appreciate that thought and that question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim, I think I saw your hand first.
Thank you. I understand being this a strategic document, right? I mean, one of the things that's always kind of throughout this whole process has kind of bothered me is that there's never been a discussion about a district, creating a district. And it seems to me that when you look around our neighbors in Tualatin, Beaverton, Hillsborough, they have these huge parks districts. They don't have one swimming pool, they have 3. They have these beautiful parks that are well manicured, taken care of. Granted, they don't have their own cemetery, so there's that. But there's just not been any discussion. And it seems to me that looking at a long-term document like this, 10 years, that should be part of the discussion. And working with our partners in the county, Gladstone, West Lynn, whoever, it seems to me there's an opportunity at least to have that discussion, to be able to do what we want to do and combine these things and quite frankly, be able to make a more holistic approach to the planning of our parks, like especially we had a trails master plan that was done a few years back. I don't remember when it was, if it was even fully approved, but the county now has a trails group that is working on trails as well. And if we're not, we should be talking with them, right? We should be integrating all these things together. And the other thing I was curious about, and probably in the same vein, is partnerships. Do we really want to run a swimming pool? I mean, maybe we have YMCA come in and contract it out to somebody like that. I don't know. I mean, I didn't see a lot of forward thinking in this document. I mean, I saw a lot of history and I saw a lot of what ifs, but not a lot of long-term planning, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think you raise very fair points on all of that. And what this really is yeah, again, this is a strategic document that really the idea was to ask the community what do you want for your parks and recreation system. That's the question that gets answered, and that's what gets compiled. But what doesn't fully get answered in these plans, and that's the next step then, and that's really our work with the staff, working with our elected officials, the city commission, our Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, committees like yourself, just citizen input and community input groups. But what you're getting into is really the very much the forward thinking of, okay, this is what the community wants. We clearly don't have this level of resources. How do we want to attempt to accomplish that? And is the community willing to explore things like what you're talking about? Because it really does come down to money. And so I think these are the bigger questions of, policy questions and conversations with the city commission. And I think just really long-term strategic discussions with the community as to, is something like a district what Oregon City might ever want to consider. And I don't know the answer to that, but we certainly are going to explore conversations around how do we fund these things? Do we look at some kind of an operational fee? Do we want to explore bond measure to build some of these things? I mean, the aquatic facility is like the really big ticket item. Is does the community really truly want that? And that report tags it at a $40 million price tag, and that's, it might be higher, it might be lower. We think that's probably in the ballpark. That's a big ask for the community, and how do we want to explore that? So, yeah, those are very fair points, I think.
And just one more to add to that is, what I would really like to see is that discussion happening before a bond measure is floated. Because, it's an easy thing to do, is to say, well, let's just do a bond measure and see if we can get the money we need for that. But again, that's a short-term fix. And that's why I think we need to have a little more forward thinking before we come with just a simple bond measure. And it's happened before. And a good example, just to kind of give you an idea, I happen to be on the Clackamas Fire District Budget Committee, and Clackamas, that is a program that works extremely well. I mean, it looks like if you look at all the neighboring cities now, almost everybody is joining in with that district because it's so efficient, it's effective, and they share training. They do all these wonderful things, and it's been a really an amazing effort made. We're now getting Sandy and Gladstone, and all these people are now combining into this program. So it works. It's just something I think we need to pursue. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Dennis?
In the last year, I've gotten involved in our neighborhood cemetery. It's a pioneer cemetery. It goes back to 1864. And what I find glaring is the omission of, it's not listed here. We have the old Kanema Park and the deferred maintenance. I understand there's a lot of work that's gone into this, and I know you're making this presentation coming forward, but I don't know how you can sort of negate the Pioneer Cemetery. I mean, we're at the end of the Oregon Trail. We have people in that cemetery. It's an inactive cemetery. It's 2 acres. It's in the category of regional park, specialty park. But I mean, I don't know why it is so been overlooked, neglected, left to the volunteers of the neighborhood to cut it every year for Memorial Day and put out flags. I'm just beside myself in terms of its omission. And for consideration alone, I think it should be readdressed.
Appreciate that input. haven't been here very long, so I'm not sure, this document was created quite some time ago at this point, but certainly something I can look into.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Bob?
You referenced capital investments in relation to park maintenance. What about the maintenance of non-capital investment issues? A prime example would be the paved walkways in several of the parks are in terrible condition. What can you do about it?
So paved pathways are typically included in this dollar amount because that would be a capital project. The city defines a capital project as anything over $5,000. So I think particularly of Park Place is a good example of a park that could really use a complete overhaul on that pathway. That'd be a capital project. More like patches and things like that, that's something our team can handle internally. Typically what we do is we work with Public Works. Sometimes they have asphalt mix left over at the end of the day, and we'll kind of divert them to a park, drop it in real quick and patch where we can. But I think a lot of the parks could use kind of a mill and overlay situation or chip seal over a lot of their pathways. Those are included in these dollar amounts.
And
As developments come through Oregon City, they are required to have some open spaces or park spaces. Often, those are not large enough for the city parks to consider assuming the responsibility for the maintenance. I think, what is your minimum, 3 acres or 5 acres or something like that?
3 acres would be reasonable. Yeah, it's going to depend on the property, but.
I guess we need to ask you to put some thought into that, because we require the developers to provide park space, yet we don't provide any ongoing maintenance, and the neighborhood is the only one left available to provide that maintenance, and then they have to provide their neighborhood associations funding, and it gets to be a real messy issue. My last question is, let me preface this with, this really gets my goat. Are there any plans for future parks? And the reason I tell you it gets my goat is that several new parks have been built in the last 10 or 12 years, but we still are millions of dollars behind in maintenance of our present parks. So how can you justify building a new park when you can't even take care of the ones you have? So I'm back to my original question. Are there any future parks planned?
Yeah, I'll take a first crack at that and then Tom fill in. But another good question and very fair point. There's always this balance of, we want to maintain, and we have old parks in Oregon City, right? We're the first city, and so we've had parks for a long time, and then they've developed along the way. So we've got all these different, varying levels of older to newer. There's a balance of we have a responsibility to take care of those things that we have, and we try to keep up with that. That is very much an ongoing challenge. And the community's growing, and the new developments are paying into the system typically through SDC, system development charges. We do charge parks SDC. So we actually have a commitment to invest that money into things that go towards the growth of expanding, basically expanding our park's capacity. That's what SDCs are legally required to do. So the city has chosen to charge those to developers, which means there's an expectation that then we have to be thinking about expanding the capacity to keep up with the development, just like we do with, roads and water and different things as well. So you're correct. It is a delicate balancing act. This plan does forecast primarily in the neighborhood parks, part of that, that Tom went through, the different types of parks. So what this plan shows us that we need more of is to focus on the neighborhood parks, the bigger parks, the community type parks, and the bigger size. We probably have about the right amount for now for the next 10 years at least. But it is those neighborhood parks, and there's a standard that we kind of work with, and it's pretty common that you're trying to have a park that's walkable within about a half mile of every residence in the city, and we don't have that right now. So we do have those. Tom talked about that we have these places identified, kind of a heat map that shows those. So yes, we do have. There are aspirations to build more parks. But we also are cognizant of the question earlier I appreciated about the maintenance and how do we keep up. Those two things don't always equate well because they're different funding sources. So the new development comes from SDCs that can't be used for maintenance. They can only be used to develop. We get grant opportunities. There's lots and lots of grant opportunities, and this city has done a good job of getting grants for development. That can't be used for maintenance. The only thing mostly that we can use for maintenance comes from our city general fund, which is a constrained resource, and we have to allocate that with all the other city needs that use that general fund. So it's an imperfect system for sure, but we're trying to keep up with what we have. We're trying to meet the needs of the future and the growing community, and we're doing the best we can, and this plan tries to map out the best way for us to strategically do that. What we want to do is focus on the priorities and not just try to do everything all at once. So we have to kind of prioritize our way through that. But it's a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair question.
I know they can only be used for new development.
Correct.
Within the parks.
Yeah, adding capacity, yeah. In existing parks to add capacity, which means adding something that brings more use of that park, or building a brand new park altogether.
Then in the case of Park Place Park, why couldn't we have used SDCs for the new trail, which would be expanding the use of the park, rather than to have to rely on a grant?
I'm not sure about that. I would have to look into that, yeah. I don't think any other insight into that one, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I'd be interested. You've been involved in that quite a bit.
Yes, but the project started before I joined the city. I don't know why they didn't use SDCs for it and they went with the Metro Enhancement Grant, but I can look back in our records and see.
Okay, I'd like an answer on that when you can get it to me. That's all I had. Thank you.
And I believe we have some online as well.
I did just want to answer kind of the question of future parks. This map is in the document, the parks inventory document. You'll see kind of the two big red circles and then the various concept areas. The south end concept area, Thimble Creek and Park Place, all have some form of park dedication tied to them, whether it's open space or a community park or something like that. So that's reasonably where we can expect to see some new parks. And then these two red circles are the main areas that were identified in the analysis as needing neighborhood parks. So those are the areas that, if land came up today and we had an opportunity to buy it, those would be some of our high priority areas.
And Mark, I'm happy to ask your question for you, but if you want to ask it yourself. I can.
Okay. If everyone can hear me, I can speak up. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I really agree a lot with what I believe Tim was talking about with parks districts. I think that finding solutions with our neighboring communities is a great idea. But I have some questions about the standards that you showed on some earlier pages there. First off, how do we measure the utilization of our existing parks right now? How is that reflected in your need? Because what I'm seeing is the answers to a survey, but do we track how many cars go into parking lots, how many people, how many rentals there are, et cetera? Is that data part of this presentation?
So the data would have been used in the analysis analysis of the usage in the parks. The level of service standards, though, are really based on acreage, and that's based on how National Recreation and Parks Association defines, like, how do you provide, the number of acres that a citizen needs. They do that on a per 1,000 population basis. It's not really based on usage. We do track usage in parks. There's a variety of different ways that we do that, whether it's shelter rentals. We have a software that tracks, usage, rentals, all those different things. We don't typically do a lot of car counters in this city. It's definitely something, since I've come on, that we've explored more. And then there's also some kind of higher tech solutions. They're very expensive, but they use cell phone data to show, like, where people come from, where they go. We've done a couple demos on that software so that we could get an insight into specific parks, particularly end of the Oregon Trail for events, so that we could see kind of what a real count is. And then those events are also opportunities where typically one of our staff members is going around with a clicker, just counting people. It's as accurate as it can be, but those are the ways that we measure usage.
Well, I do think that it's important that we're spending where the demand is shown in historical usage, not just based on the surveys that we're sending out, even though I did fill out the survey and I was happy that you did that. But I want to go a little bit further and talk a little bit about those national standards, especially since you brought it up, because I'm personally not as interested in national standards across the entire United States about park utilization as I am about local standards. How our parks compare to the parks that are in Clackamas County, in the other counties in Oregon, and I would rather really see those numbers about how we measure up than trying to set a benchmark based on the entire United States. Because I believe that we have some really exceptional parks in Oregon. I think that's something that's real attractive. And sometimes when I go around with my kids quite a bit, I think, I love Oregon City. I love the parks that we use. I know that there are areas that are real draws. We went out to Sandy recently. They just finished their action park with the bicycle pump track, skate facility. It's exceptional. And it's a really exciting place out of small town Sandy. So I would like to see this analysis not be based or dependent on a baseline from national standards. I think that we can do better by looking at local standards. That's just my opinion. So.
No, that's a great opinion, and it is something that we did as part of this process. I'm trying to find the page so I can share which page it is, but I'm struggling to do so at the moment. But we did compare with other similarly sized systems in the state of Oregon. The ones I can remember off the top of my head are Pendleton and Medford, which are both similarly sized in population and acreage. And I think there are two more of local, Oregon park districts that we compared to see kind of how we measure up.
But they're completely different climates.
What do you mean?
Pendleton is a completely different climate from what we've got here.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're reasonably providing the same types of services that we are. They have a cemetery, they have senior services, they have the same types of things that we do. So yeah, that's how we measure up to see kind of what are they doing? Are we doing similar things? Do we have the same number of staff? Do we invest the same amount in marketing as they do? There's a bunch of different analysis that are done to see kind of where we measure up. Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, how many people come to our parks from Walhalla or other cities? They're not from our community itself.
Yeah, I think Tom was talking about how we either do or don't track usage in our parks. I will tell you that, and this is not unique to Oregon City, it is difficult to track the actual kind of just, the typical park user is somebody that just comes to a park and recreate somehow, whether that's walking around or, playing, doing an activity, whatever you do at parks, there's lots of different things. The things that we can track well are when people actually sign up or register or go through a process, and those are kind of limited. It's the rentals, it's, we work with groups that we assign, parts of the park to. We have some things that, Tom mentioned some a little bit more informal, but we do some counters and track things once in a while. There's So to your point, that reason I say it that way is we're not sure is really the true answer. We think we know anecdotally, we know they're used very well with our local community, but certainly we get lots of visitors, especially maybe with our our bigger parks. Clackamat for sure is a regional draw. We know that. So are some of our other, we get sports tournaments and those kind of things. But we don't have actual numbers. There are some, whether people like this or not, your cell phones are tracking you. We all know that. And the good of that that can be used is to provide data if you wish to. There are companies and programs that you can pay for that actually will ping phones, and they know how many people were at some site at sometime. There are parks providers that are beginning to utilize that type of technology more. We haven't really gotten into that so much here. Is something we want to do or not? If there's value in doing that, I'm not sure, but it is difficult to really truly track that. That's a good question, but I don't have a good answer because we really don't know the answer. But what we have is some anecdotal information, and we have some usage that we can track and monitor. And so we know that people come from around, and we have great parks, so of course they come from different places. The neighborhood parks tend to be those people that live here that you just go down the street to your neighborhood park typically, but it's the bigger parks where people come in from out of the area. And so we know there's a lot of people that come from beyond Oregon City. We just don't know for sure how many.
Well, you were saying earlier, you're tracking some of the phone data, and
We're not right now, but that is a technology that exists if we wanted to, yeah.
maybe we can get some help from the state and other counties that are coming and using our facilities to maintain.
Yeah, it's that we're supporting these through our local tax base in Oregon City. So Oregon City residents pay for most of what we have, and certainly there are people from other places using it. I guess this exchange of that is I think Oregon City residents, I'm sure, go to other parks out of our area, and so how that balances out, I'm not sure, but yeah, very very fair point.
As a grandmother to a handicapped grandchild, where are the handicapped swings and play equipment in Oregon City? What parks have those?
Yeah, do you know offhand?
I don't have a list with me, but I can get you that info.
Woods would.
Tyrone, yeah, that's the newest one. I can't remember if DC Lotterette was built that way too. It's the same type of park, so it should be. I just can't remember if the access point is fully accessible.
It is.
Okay, yeah. And then we did just provide a new ramp at Wesley Lynn as well, and we're looking at swapping out some of the equipment there to be more accessible.
And I will say thank you for that question. It's something that, we have some accessible playgrounds. I think, the forward look is anytime we replace or do a new playground, we want it to be fully accessible, or we want it to be as accessible as is possible. This is becoming really the industry standard. Is if you build a new playground, it is accessible, period. The look back over time is that wasn't the case as well as it should have been, and we prefer that. So that will be very much front of mind for us as we do anything moving forward. And if we had the funds to replace every existing playground and make it fully accessible, we would love to do that. We don't. That's not our reality right now, but that's certainly
Some of the playgrounds of my youth caused handicap.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of those types of equipment don't exist anymore for that reason. Exactly.
And does Dwayne have a question?
He is feeling under the weather, but I can always connect Dwayne to Scott and Tom at a different time to be able to answer his questions.
I did want to go back to Mark's question real quick. I was able to find the page. It is page 125 of the Parks Master Plan report. And the agencies that we did the benchmark analysis against were City of Albany, City of Lake Oswego, City of Medford, and City of Pendleton. So within our region and outside of our region.
Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to make a comment, parking. Whenever it seems like when we do parks and we have parking, there's never enough. And as a person who lives directly across the street from a very busy park, you know, we have a lot of people parking in the street and sometimes parking blocking and things of that nature. So I'd just like to suggest that whatever it is you think you might need for parking, double or triple it for future expansion especially. I was at a park out in Newburgh. It's like a sports complex. And I mean, they actually had quite a bit of parking and they were overflowing, you know, because of baseball tournaments and stuff like that, right? So.
Appreciate that feedback, yeah.
Well, welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
You're back, and we thank you very much for coming tonight for the presentation.
We're really happy to be here and happy to answer any follow-up questions. If you have any, you can get in touch with us. I think we're pretty easy to find. And one thing I will say, you've peppered us with a lot of really great questions and feedback, and that is encouraging because what that really means is we know how much the community values parks and recreation. It's such an important thing. It adds so much to the health and wellness and livability of a community, and that's why Tom and I do what we do for a profession is, you know, we believe in this stuff. So the fact that you had a diversity of types of input and questions, but what that really means is that you just are a good representation of the fact that we know the city cares deeply about its parks and recreation opportunities, and so we want to find the best ways forward to provide what the community wants. So, yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Are there any public comments from the audience or online? Have you gotten any of those?
Karina, do you have a public comment for tonight?
No, I do not. Just hearing everything that has been said, but not comments at the moment. Thank you.
And approval of the minutes, did everyone have time, an opportunity to read the minutes? Were there any?
I'd move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. And we're on to the staff report.
I'm going to breeze through all of the hefty material that Parks and Rec provided us for our meeting today. Props to anyone who read through all of that before a meeting tonight. But just know if you need, I know when I sent out the agenda packet, because the packet was so large, those amendments, I couldn't actually have the PDF attached, but if you want any specific materials, I'd be more than happy to create that share folder. Sometimes it's difficult to find these items online, again, just because they're such large files. So reach out to me directly if you do want any copies of the materials that Parks and Rec provided.
I did want to ask if there was a park, if it was available to get a copy of the document.
The document, I can reach out to the staff and see if we can get do you want a printed copy of it?
Yes,
Beverly?
please.
Yeah, I think that's something, I can do that for you before you leave tonight.
You are amazing.
You just might have to wait a while for the printer to
That's
get all
all right.
of that out.
I was going to do it at my house, but it would never happen, so.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that. You just might have to stay after just a
No
little bit.
problem, thank you.
The class.
Updates for June. E-Trail News was sent out on May 27th. As always, those neighborhood association meeting schedules for the month of June and July were sent out. I did not include McLaughlin's because I wasn't sure on the date of your neighborhood association meeting, but that'll be included in the next one. Deadline for fall 2025 Trail News is Monday, May 7th at 12 p.m. So that means that's when I need to have all of the submissions, all of the materials in for our designer by 12 p.m. on July 7th. If you can get materials to me in advance of July 7th, if you have anything that your neighborhood association wants to include within the trail news. I attached a copy of the updated neighborhood association information. I know Chris Nolte from Hazel Grove provided me some updates, which is exciting for your scheduled neighborhood association meetings. Any updates that you need, let me know, especially in regards to contact information for your neighborhood associations, because I know some chair positions have changed. That is that for trail news. I've touched base with our chair. Last year, before entering into the fiscal year, City of Oregon City has their fiscal year from the beginning of July until the end of June. So we're ending our 2024-2025 fiscal year. The budget is going to be presented at the next city commission for its final approval. The budget committee has approved the $90,000 for the biennial budget for the citizen involvement committee. But internally within the citizen involvement committee, there needs to be discussion about how the budget's being managed like we did last year. Instead of having a work session before our meeting, in speaking with the chair, we can just hold off on having presentations and then really focus on figuring out the CIC budget for the next fiscal year, which will be $45,000 dependent on the city commission's approval of the proposed budget.
How in the world did you get all that more money?
It hasn't been approved yet.
Holy cow, I couldn't believe it when I watched that budget committee meeting. I don't know who's responsible, but big pat on the back for that.
Jared and Hannah.
I think we're.
I mean, the cost that we proposed for the Citizen Involvement Committee was based off of the postcards, how many historically the neighborhood associations have requested, the reactivation of South End, Gaffney Lane, Hazel Grove, and then the printing costs and the postage costs. They have skyrocketed. Fortunately, I haven't entered into a contract yet with our potential new contractor, which would be the same as who we have now, Eagle Web Press. They've been great partners. I just am not going to move forward with a contract until that budget has been officially approved by the city commission.
Well, the members of the CIC are certainly in your debt for the work that you did for that. I mean, not that we're going to pay you anything. But we're in your
It's
debt.
really, I mean, it's your budget committee and it's the city commission that approve and decides the needs. So, yeah, that's all I'll say.
Don't tell Eagle Press we got more money, though.
They have been really great to work with. I know that there were a handful. I know Linda from Park Place reached out to me, and then I believe there was Gaffney Lane. Deanna reached out to me too in regards to the postcards. Sometimes there's that illegible streak that happens. We visited back on that a while ago because Denise first brought it up, realized that it's the post office when it goes through that mail sorter that's creating those streaks. The best way to prevent that is doing the white background behind. So I just wanted to emphasize that to the neighborhood associations again. And I'm always happy to help in redesigning. Sarah's also been, I feel like everybody's using Sarah's template now, which is awesome. But I just wanted to touch base with you that it's really moving forward. Going on with a contract with Eagle Web Press means that there would be a tiered pricing system. Because from their experience with our contract over the past year is that there's some neighborhood associations who have over 1,000 residential addresses, and then there's Kanema who has 192. And what we can do in the future to save costs even more is conjoining those mailings, which I've been doing already, but making sure that I have a solidified schedule of your general neighborhood association meetings. That way I can coordinate, okay, I can send Kanema and Hillendale and Tower Vistas together, but I need to make sure that both of them have that same deadline. I can reach out to you that week in advance before I need that postcard by. That's super helpful for me and will really save costs in the future. So just I've attached down here the scheduled calendar. And this is, again, just kind of an estimate based off of what your neighborhood associations have provided as your meeting schedule, and what potentially the future might be based off of. So if you can make sure to review that and come to our next meeting on July 7th, it doesn't have to be exact, but especially over the next couple months as we first enter that contract, having that information is going to be really, really helpful. And then also having an idea, a solidified number of postcards or meetings that you're going to distribute that information out. Another thing that I do want to emphasize that came up at the South End Neighborhood Association meeting is that postcards is the way that the majority of the neighborhood associations have decided to send out their notifications to their residents, but it's not the only way. I know that previously some neighborhood associations have talked about doing a yearly larger size newsletter to be able to go out and emphasize all of the neighborhood association meeting dates for that schedule. So coming to the next meeting prepared about what your neighborhood association needs are, that way we can best, or the CIC can best accommodate those needs. Dan?
The larger things getting in the mail, people have commented to me is if you get something in the mail, they notice that something's happening and that the neighborhood meeting is going on. The little postcards get stuffed in with other mail and a lot of people don't even see them. So doing something bigger attracts attention and we get more people coming to our meetings.
I think the only thing that has to be considered is cost, right? So is it one larger newsletter that you're doing out once a year or, biannually, or is it making sure that, and that's for your neighborhood associations and for the Citizen Involvement Committee. But I'll let you know that I don't know if it's going to be feasible to do that before every meeting, especially for the neighborhood associations who meet, 4 to 6 times a year. Because we got an increase of cost, the citizen involvement is projected to have that budget. I'll let you know that was specifically estimated off of how the CIC has been running, taking into account the increased neighborhood associations. And if you're still going to be doing postcard mailers in advance before every scheduled general neighborhood association meeting, it's going to be tight. And yeah, I think it's just, especially moving forward, really utilizing the different tools that the neighborhood associations have, that the city has within our toolbox. I know that some of the neighborhood associations have really been utilizing that email list, and you've had better engagement. You've had an increase within your email subscribers, the neighborhood associations who have put those QR codes for people to automatically subscribe to those emails. They've had an uptake of subscribers and just engagement overall. I've had more people reach out to me about various details of the meeting. So just utilizing all of the tools in our toolbox to make sure that you're getting the best engagement within your meetings that you can, and diversifying those outreach methods. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone would be coming to the July 7th meeting prepared. I'll make sure to reach out to the neighborhood associations who currently are on the CIC. I know Mark's here with us tonight, but I'll make sure to reach out to Two Rivers. Rivercrest is inactive right now, but Two Rivers Neighborhood Association is the only other neighborhood association who wouldn't be represented. So I want to make sure that they're aware that those discussions are going to be taking place. There's going to be a 6x6 art show on June 14. The Oregon City Arts Commission, they had an arts contest. They also are sponsoring this art show where the winner of the student contest is going to be awarded, but also it's going to be a great evening for individual artists to be able to showcase their talents. It's going to be at the ArcLight Event Center. It'll include food, art, live music. All proceeds are going to go to community youth art programs. I attach flyers within the attachment, the agenda packet with more information. Oregon City Ivy League is going to have another work party on June 21st. Dwayne, I know that's the same time as your neighborhood, Gaffney Lane's neighborhood cleanup. I apologize for landing on the same date as your event again, but I've got a limited amount of weekend flexibility. QR codes, I think that's all that I have. Another thing that I just became aware of today, when we were talking about the number of residential addresses within each one of the neighborhood associations, it was a large topic of conversation of how does the city stay updated on when there are more residential addresses added to the neighborhood. Our GIS team just updated the residential addresses. I have those on file. I believe the neighborhood, I did the calculations today. So let's see if I can bring that up. Park Place Neighborhood Association had the largest increase with 77, but none of these are going to be drastic effects within the budget. But this will be updated on the next CIC budget sheet, and it'll really help being able to plan for the next year. But just to kind of give you a scope too, this will happen every quarter. So the last time it happened was in January, now it's happening in May. It'll happen again in the summer maybe, and then in the fall. I don't know the exact schedule, but I know it happens every quarter. There will also, in the staff report for next month, I'll be sure to include information on how you yourself can sign up to be notified when those residential mailing lists get updated. But I'll make sure to notify everybody once that happens in all of the CIC meetings. But if you want to be notified yourself too, there's a way for that to be able to happen. Yeah.
We had all those apartments added in our area. I think there's like 200 or 300, so we should have been the top amount of addresses added.
I know that Caulfield, the last time, and I can actually, let's look. There hasn't been a huge uptake in Caulfield. I can reach out to Katie England inquiring about that, but I don't know if that's based, I'm not sure. I don't have a direct answer, but I can reach out to our GIS team and inquire about that specifically. Any other questions? Looking over, this is a little bit different than the CIC financials that are within the agenda packet. I want to make sure I'm sharing my right screen. This kind of just lays out what the final remaining 2023-2025 budget for the Citizen Involvement Committee is going to look like. Hillendale and Tower Vista, they have their last postage. You had 3 residents in total included, so I included that. I think it was $1.56 difference. And then Hazel Grove, their postcard wasn't included in this just because of the way that our finance is able to process things, and by the time that I get invoices. With everyone sending their postcards, there will be $1,402.49. But at the last meeting, it was decided that Hazel Grove, Two Rivers, and Hillendale Tower Vista would purchase some A-frames. So with that, the CIC will have $202.49.
Whoa, have a party.
Yeah, and if we look at our fiscal history, I think that's like record-breaking of utilizing the CIC funds. The last thing I want to mention too is that on June 18th is when, that's the deadline that I need your A-frame signage, yeah. And if I don't get it by then we're gonna have some problems. But I'll reach out in advance too. You still have plenty of time. If you need any assistance in that, just reach out to me directly and I'd be happy to help.
Hey, Dan, since March of 2023, looks like you've gone up about 400.
Or, wow.
Josh doing my work for me, thanks. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions regarding the budget? Or anything else?
I had, going on maybe to the general business, last year in July, we did not have a meeting because it was a holiday. We're still kind of the Monday, the holiday. Is the general consensus of people that we will be back in town for July 7th for a meeting?
I will.
Okay, okay, I'm getting head nods, okay.
That's a good question.
Well,
This is gonna be an important
I
conversation.
know it's gonna be an important conversation. I thought, well, we'll move this on down to August. All right, okay. That was the one I had for general business.
Other general business is National Night Out. So everyone should have received an email about the Citizen Involvement Committee's invitation to participate in the National Night Out. In the past, historically, the CIC has had their own booth. And in the past, I think too, there's always been an extended offer for the neighborhood associations themselves to participate. But there kind of just hasn't been that level of involvement of interest. But I wanted to make sure this year to emphasize that the neighborhood associations have been invited by the police department, by the city, to host their own booth. You just need to reach out to Patty by the deadline, which is Friday, June 27th. And I'm hoping to receive a response from the CIC tonight on their response on whether they would like to participate or not.
Kanema is going to have a table, a booth.
Okay.
So what would we do? In the past, CIC has had a big map, and we have those beautiful little dots, and we have, when people come by, we have to put a dot on their residence, and then we talk with them, get them involved in their neighborhood. And as we've done in the past. And in the past, we've given things out for people. I don't know where that we've got $202.49. That's where we'll buy some candy. But that was what we have done in the past. And we have a sign-ups for people, I think it was 2 or 3 shifts. Takes about 2 or 3 people at a time in there to effectively work the booth.
How many neighborhood associations are hosting a booth of their own this year, or hope to? 1. And Kanema, so 2, okay.
Maybe here.
And maybe they can locate us in the same area.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
It would be better to do it as a group.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
and
it is,
consolidate it.
Uh-huh.
And then we can switch off at CIC
And CIC
table
as
or
well,
something
too,
like that.
yeah.
It makes sense.
The thing that I also want to emphasize is that in the past, the city has been able to provide a pop-up tent, but this year we don't have that availability. So and the neighborhood associations are separate entities from the city. If you need any materials such as a table, I myself, based off of the resources that I have, we're not able to provide that pop-up tent. We are able to provide the CIC, the 6-foot table, and all of the signage that the CIC is invested in. But the neighborhood associations, any materials that you need, you'll have to figure those out on your own or reach out to Patty directly requesting like, hey, do you have a table that we would be able to use? I just know that I have enough resources for a city booth and the CIC.
Yeah. So we've always used the pop-up tent for our signs. We have these big CIC citizen involvement signs to put up. So what is Patty's contact information? I can contact Patty and, you've got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
We'll need
the other
that, I
thing
think.
that I do want to mention.
Also sun relief.
Yes, is that if the Citizen Involvement Committee needs to purchase materials to be able to conduct that outreach out to their members, that's a form of making sure to notify your residents of your existence and of your meetings, then that's a cost for the Citizen Involvement Committee to be utilized by all of the neighborhood associations. That's something that can be.
So it was recently brought up that the latest printed maps and things like
Yes.
that are out of date.
Yes.
So it may be good for us to think about getting a new one printed up. A couple of them.
And I have no idea who printed that map, where it is. It's a great big, it's, you know,
GIS.
Yeah. I can send you the resources again for reaching out to our GIS and the planning team and requesting to get another one of those printed. I don't know what the costs associated with that are, and I don't know if there would be any type of fee waivers or anything like that, but that's something that I'm sure that that's something that GIS and our planning department will be able to assist. I can direct you to that. And I will be expecting for you as chair to be reaching out to Patty directly to notify her of the CIC's attendance.
yeah, as soon as I get
Okay.
a contact for her. Oh, you
Yeah.
did? Oh, bless your heart.
Josh is on top of it.
I know.
It's a detail.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
What is the date of that?
August 5th. Tuesday, August 5th, from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It's going to be at the end of the Oregon Trail. I can be sure to bring a sign-up sheet to the next meeting. Include that in the agenda packet for individuals who want to take on different shifts. And I can be responsible for bringing all of the items that I have stored in my office.
We had some printed sheets left over from the last event we did. The one in the senior center, we had some printed materials there left over. And I put them in the area underneath the fire station.
Okay.
So that's where I.
Some of that information might be outdated, just because
Yeah.
Hazel Grove, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm more than happy to print out
Okay,
more copies
okay,
of that.
okay.
And if there are certain materials that you want professionally printed too, again, that would be coming out of the CIC budget. I can print it at the city for free.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, I know that you emphasized, Linda, at the last, after the spring forward, of like the emphasis of like, we need to have some more engaging materials.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And more bodies. So on to round table. We have people online here. Do we still have Dwayne and Mark? Would you like to go first? See, they always check out early.
No, I haven't checked out.
Okay.
So we had our Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association Emergency Prep meeting. It was actually a fantastic event, a workshop, actually. Everybody that came had a wonderful time. The speakers were top-notch from the Red Cross, Clackamas River water providers, and from the city's disaster management team. It acquired sponsorship from Starbucks and Voodoo Donuts, so everybody was sugared up and caffeinated for the event. Always a good thing to keep people engaged. And a lot of folks want to, of course, do it again soon, but I was hoping to stimulate interest in the concept rather than making it something that I do on a normal basis. Anyway, and we've also got our upcoming street cleanup on June the 14th, as Hannah pointed out. It's Saturday morning, going to be from 9 to... I think it's scheduled from 9 to 1, but it'll probably be done much earlier than that, realistically. Sorry, June 21st. is the day for that. And it's Leland and Myers Road to 213 through Gaffney Lane neighborhood. That's what's going on.
Very good.
I'm sorry. Oh.
Start, Chris.
Yeah. So at Hazel Grove, we're having our our second meeting on June 10th, which is going to be really good. We had 55 at our last one. We're trying to exceed that this time. So we're having that. We're going to participate, as you now know, about Night Out. We're going to have our a booth or a table or whatever. And I can bring also a 10 by 10 tent. So it'll be nice to be able to have some shade in case we need that at that point in time. We also, George is thinking about also becoming a CIC member, and we're going to nominate him to be able to be here from Hazel Grove at our next meeting and then go through the process to be able to do that. We're electing our steering committee and officers, so we're still in that very, very infantile state, but on the other hand, we're moving along as we can. So we'll see what happens. That's it.
Dan?
Okay, we had a really good meeting. We had a lot of people show up. We had a lot of questions. Biggest question I've got is, who owns the Holcomb Road Bridge? And who maintains it? And putting the barrier on the bridge to protect from people throwing rocks down and stuff like that. And so it's really a concern to a lot of people. The other concern, of course, going from the high school going all the way to Albertsons, the walkway next to the road. We need a walkway. We need appropriate lighting at some of the other intersections, and hopefully we can get to the right people at the county and get some of these things done.
Just have to persevere, keep going on it.
Say again?
You just have to persevere and keep working, keep talking.
Oh, we will. We've got some new people, and we'll be hammering down the, better put my glasses on. Like some homeless people. We want to know what the population is of the homeless people in our particular area. I was talking to a few of the homeless people, and I found out that they've actually flown in from other states because services and stuff are more available in our area. So they're being attracted here, and whether we got services or not, I don't know. I'm not even know what kind of services we have, and I know the police are having problems. The gentleman here today is out trying to help, students that don't have homes, and we need to get in there and help everybody, but we can't have young kids that need education and just are dropped here, and their parents are maybe exported back to Mexico or whatever. They need an education, they need to take care of their kids. That's, kind of deep down in my heart, because it's a young kid. If it wasn't for being in this area and getting the backing, having the burial fields to work into to survive, to help provide income to your family, to eat and stuff. Rents were low, were inexpensive. I could start building a house here in Oregon City. You could build a brand new house for $18,000, and that's SDC fees, land, and build the house. In the day, a piece of 2,000 square foot lot's $150,000. SDC fees are $60,000. So we need to help our students that need some help and, get them some homes. There's so many things to do, and it's a large task. So we all just need to work together and see what we can put out and get her done. That's all.
Tim? Denise?
So last month we had interesting meeting with Kenny Kennedy Schultz and Jim Montgomery from Public Works, and they told us about the Oregon City Inflow and Infiltration Project. And that's an important project for the McLaughlin neighborhood especially, because they have funds available to replace the sewer lines from the street to the house for free. Free for us.
Good price.
Yeah, very good price. But the bad news is they're not getting to my house until 2029, and I needed it last week. So,
That could be a problem.
whatever. And then we had Kira Smith from the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council asking for a letter of recommendation for a project on the Abernathy Creek headwaters to remove invasive plants and plant native plants. And we did a cleanup on 7th Street a couple weeks ago.
Saturday, or week before Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe I won the prize for the most unusual thing. We do a prize for the most unusual thing that is found. I found a pair of shoes.
Well, you found one shoe.
No, I found two.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's no big deal.
So I get something from Dairy Queen, I think.
Matching.
Yes.
What size were they?
I don't know. And then one more item that you're going to talk about.
I am?
Yes.
All right. I do want to say something about the city, working with the city on this I&I program. It's pretty exciting. They came to us, the neighborhood, and wanted our help, the consultants, wanted our help to get the message out to people in the neighborhoods, the neighbors. So they gave us the maps. We met with them. One of our neighborhood steering committee members and myself met with the city, and we were able to work with both the consultant and the city, look at the long-term plan for this, and basically they want us to go out and walk the neighborhood with them to talk about, to talk to folks and explain to them what this means, because their concern is that they get something from the city and they either don't understand it or don't want to understand it, or it's going to cost them money. And so I took the opportunity last week to walk with the consultants through our neighborhood, and we signed up almost everybody that had not signed up. And it was interesting because people, I wore my shirt, so they knew where I was from, and it was really great. I applaud the city for taking the opportunity to work with the neighborhood association and really use us for what we can help them with. So I was really pleased with that, and it was really nice, and they really liked it. They really enjoyed it as well. So that's that. The other issue I'll talk about is we had a new neighbor move in, a business into our neighborhood. It's a rehab facility, drug and alcohol rehab facility on 5th and Madison called Spark Wellness. And almost immediately we started getting complaints from the neighbors. Monroe, sorry, not Madison, Monroe. And I started getting complaints from the neighbors that people were out hanging in their driveways and smoking and things. And it just kind of goes to show you, we could have just sat and talked about it, but we actually went and met with the mayor and myself, one of the neighborhood representatives of that particular neighborhood, and we sat with them and met their entire staff. We talked to them about our concerns. They talked to us about their concerns, and we were able to fashion a good neighbor agreement. So that'll be our 4th good neighbor agreement that we've done in Oregon, in the McLaughlin neighborhood. There's a lot of people that complain and just say, well, you can't get anything done, but you really can. And if you take an opportunity to go talk to people and just explain things, we came out with a really nice working agreement with them, and I invited them to our next meeting to present their, who they are. So it works. It's just a nice thing, so we wanted to bring that up. That's it.
Bob?
Last Monday, the Park Place neighborhood had their elections, and our new officers, since we lost Steve Van Haverbeek, he moved to Westland, and we lost Nick Dirkman, he moved to Indiana, and just last weekend. So anyway, our new chair is Ryan Richards, and our vice chair, somebody familiar to the CIC, is Tom Guile. Linda Smith remains our secretary, and Jackie Hammond Williams remains treasurer. According to our bylaws, the representatives for the CIC are the chair and the vice chair. And so I don't know if they'll allow me to continue on the CIC or not. We'll find out the next meeting that we have. Let's see here. Anything else here? The biggest discussion at our meeting, when it was a general meeting last Monday, was the condition of the yards in the Clackamas County housing projects in Park Place. And I mean, you talk about messes. It is like a homeless camps in many of those residences. A few of them are visible right from Holcomb Boulevard. And so we had representatives from the county housing authority there, and they gave us a bunch of non-answers, what I refer to as non-answers, excuses. And they are building, the upper area is going to be demolished, and the lower area is going to have brand new buildings for housing people, the same amount of people as in both of the areas now, 200 residences. And they say that there will be a third-party management. The county won't be involved in the management of those new residences. And they said that they will take care of that issue. Believe it when we see it. Because, I mean, you have to go up there and drive around through those areas. It's unbelievable. It's just terrible.
Bob,
so we'll see what happens there.
Bob, is there any blight ordinance or anything like that with code enforcement? Yeah. That they can assist with?
It's county property, so I'm not sure. I'm planning to go to the city commission. Fair warning, Adam. I may go to the county commission. I may contact a TV station or two about this issue, because there's no reason in the world why that can't be taken care of. They gave us excuses like, well, some of the people are mentally handicapped. Well, okay, I'm mentally handicapped, for crying out loud, my wife's opinion. But I still keep my property up. I'm actually, I tell you a little story about that. I'm retired, but my wife keeps telling everybody I'm retarded. So that's where all that comes from. Anyway, that's where we are with the Park Place. Now, on the Planning Commission meeting next Monday, we'll be discussing a portico change at the old assisted living facility on 10th or 11th in Washington. It used to be the old hospital there, and a new company is coming in, and they're going to try to rehab that whole thing. I mean, according to them, it's going to be a really nice facility. So we're at Monday's Planning Commission meeting, we'll be discussing a portion of that building. That's all I have.
Dennis?
We had a meeting, a neighborhood meeting, the 17th of April. We talked about a number of things. We had our guest was James Graham. He spoke about the brochure and opportunities available to people of Oregon City in terms of economic development and such. We went on to talk about some concerns about the right-of-way within Kanema, an issue related with access and people extending their property into the right-of-way, and whether there was a need for cleanup and or safety and its concern with this right-of-way in an area that seems to have been plotted many years ago. So I don't know if it's been put to rest or it's going to be revisited, but it was discussed and we looked into it. I spoke about the ongoing cemetery within Kanema. We have concluded the enhancement grant process. Happy to have taken part in that and received some funding. We talked about what we can do with the cemetery. We talked about a number of things related to what we could do to continue the preservation, which will continue into July. Actually, I'll have something to talk about in July with, we've found a preservationist who's willing to give their time on a Saturday and come out and give a demonstration on the proper care as prescribed on how you clean the headstone not to damage the granite and that. And this I will forward to you, Hannah, to announce that even into July. We talked about the ice cream social, more important, and that's the 22nd in our little neighborhood in the Children's Park, I believe, right? Correct?
I'll
And
be there.
yes, come out for some ice cream. And that's at 3 o'clock, the 22nd. Is it on the 18th? It's not on the 18th.
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. So on the calendar that you have, Hannah,
Yeah,
it's the Sunday.
it's the Sunday. Okay. And I know that Kanema Neighborhood Association is not sending out a postcard for that.
Correct.
Do you want me to send a notification out to your email subscribers?
Oh, that would be swell.
Okay, if you send me something with the details of that, then I can make sure to get that out.
Great. That's me.
And last month, I talked a little bit about a homeless camp that was in Kanema. I would like to report that is gone. The Oregon City provided the procedures, and the Grand Ron provided the finances to clean up the camp. So you just have to be persistent and keep on it, and it gets done, right?
Nice.
Okay, Josh?
We have our next upcoming steering committee meeting tomorrow, and our general meeting will be on Tuesday, July 1st at Hillendale Park. Other than that, nothing really going on.
We'll have more next time.
And I know that Mark's online too, yeah.
Mark, sorry, last but not least. Mark?
Yeah, so South End had its first meeting in quite a while. We had about 20 participants. It was mostly a presentation just to talk about the role of neighborhood associations in Oregon City and look for interested people who could help us over the summer revise our bylaws and come back together in the fall with a quorum to actually, I think, officially restart us. So I'm hoping that by September, October, we can say that we're up and running with elected officers and everything else. So Hannah's been just exceptional during this whole process. She's helping every step of the way. Even today, she sent out some emails when I mentioned that I hadn't got a lot of follow-up emails after the meeting, and I've already got 4 just this afternoon. So things are going pretty well for us. And I do think that this NA will be fully reactivated in the fall. So
Very good, very good. Adam?
Yes, so as Hannah alluded to, We have our budget adoption on Wednesday. I've seen a few of you at our budget committee meetings, and I'm sure some of you were watching online as well. I'll just say this is my third time going through this budget process, and I've really enjoyed this opportunity. You always learn something new about the city going through this process and the ways that we spend your tax dollars. And I am very proud of the budget that we've come up with. It involved a lot of compromise. I came in with a bunch of cuts that I wanted to make, and the mayor and others came in with some proposals to increase revenues, and in the end, we met somewhere in the middle. We ended up landing at an 8-cent property tax value or property tax increase per $1,000 assessed. And this was something that I was not wanting to do. However, considering that our property tax rate has not increased in 10 years, I felt that it was at least fair to entertain that motion. And even though I was outvoted on that end, I do feel that the necessary cuts were taken to justify that increase in revenue. So even if we had not, even if we were providing the same services today as a city as we were in 2014, 2015, the effects of inflation alone would have erased our ability to provide those same services. And in fact, we are providing more services than we were. And so the fact that we've been able to get by this long without increasing taxes, I think is a testament to the financial stewardship of our city leadership. And for that, I'm really grateful. For me, the big thing was making sure that we preserve public safety. That's the number one job that we have as a government, is to make sure that our residents are safe. And then, of course, investing in our parks, our library, and our infrastructure, the things that we take for granted every single day. And so that's the main update that I have for you. And if you are interested, please stop by or watch online on Wednesday as we formally adopt the budget.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to say, either in here or online? Oh, this meeting is adjourned until July 7th. Thank you.